This is a project that started as an initiative between students and staff at Uppsala University. They wrote a proposal and got funding from the Vice Chancellor for 2 years for this project. We were 3 project assistants that were hired to work with this project and 1 pedagogical developer. The project assistants were students with different experiences of active student participation from around the university. I myself come from a center called CEMUS at Uppsala, the Center for Environment and Development Studies, where students are hired to facilitate and plan courses in sustainable development. Alexis here has a history of working with mentorship in the history program at the university. And yes, as I said, our project leader is a pedagogical developer. So this was very much a partnership project between students and staff at the university. And so during this presentation, I just want to share some experiences from the past 2 years and the different strategies that we had to coordinate active student participation initiatives around the whole university. So as we were quite a unique constellation of people working together, coming from different backgrounds, different countries, and different university experiences being staff and students, we spent a lot of time in the project trying to figure out what active student participation was. And as part of this process, we created some film material as part of our exploration of active student participation, and we hoped that this could as well be a more accessible way for staff and students at Uppsala to engage with it and hopefully be inspired by it. What do teachers and students in higher education have in common? Unhealthy coffee drinking habits? Too much to do and too little time? Yes, but also we all want the best possible teaching and learning experience. You'd think we would want to work together on this essential task, but a lot of the time there is no collaboration or dialogue between teachers and students on how we make the best education. So what's missing? Some teachers and students are attempting to bridge that gap by providing students with more opportunities to take an active role in shaping their own learning and finding new ways of working together. At Uppsala, this kind of work has been referred to as active student participation. But what does that even mean?
This concept is not something easily defined, but you could say that active student participation involves students being a resource in each other's learning, as well as students being co-creators in planning, facilitating and evaluating higher education. And examples of this would be more experienced students facilitating the learning of other students, as well as students and teachers co-creating learning materials, or students planning learning activities outside normal scheduled time. The most exciting thing might be that there's so many different ways of collaborating that haven't yet been explored.
Jag tycker att det är spännande med aktiv studentmedverkan för att man som student lär sig så otroligt mycket mer om man får vara delaktig i sin utbildning. Jag märker själv att de kurserna som jag läst med varit allra bäst är de där jag har fått vara aktiv, där jag har fått prata och diskutera och ta en aktiv roll i undervisningen och inte bara matas med information.
Faculty, sometimes they find it kind of puzzling or threatening because it sounds like you're inviting students to tell teachers how to teach, but it really isn't about that. It's about inviting students to share what they know about what happens in classrooms and have that intersect with what teachers know about what happens in classrooms.
Professors can learn, students can learn, and anybody in there between is a learner.
Min önskan är ju att det här blir tydligt över hela universitetet. Att man vet, både som lärare och student, att aktiv studentmedverkan höjer kvaliteten och alla jobbar med det som en självklarhet inom vårt universitet och det utvecklas för framtiden. Det blir högre kvalitet i utbildningen när vi jobbar tillsammans på det här sättet.
Okay, so hopefully you have a better idea now about what we mean when we talk about active student participation. As I said, this is still an ongoing conversation for our project group as well, and we realized quite quickly that there was a lot of different ways of talking about it, and the way that staff and students saw active student participation. So our goal really became to not be prescriptive or very exclusive when we were talking about it. But to show really that there was a wide spectrum of different activities and ways that people could engage with this. This is one of the pictures that we tend to show when we go out to talk to staff and students. And one of the challenges that we've seen is really trying to communicate this to people. So we try to give just very concrete examples. All of these examples are from Uppsala University. I'm not going to go through them, but you see we go through different examples from everything from within a course to transdisciplinary examples to students taking part in the planning, facilitation, and examination tasks in a course. And this is something that we can return to when there's time for discussion if you need. So we were given the mandate to work with and coordinate an enormous variety of activities at the university, the vastness of which I think was a bit unexpected for all of us in the project. But we were given a bit of guidance. This is from the Vice Chancellor's decision for our project. This project aims through systematic development to secure conditions and support for active student participation as a standard part of educational activities, an Uppsala model for active student participation. I think that one leading way in which we saw this mandate and saw the Uppsala model for active student participation was as the enhancement of an academic culture that is more inclusive and where staff and students can truly see learning and teaching as a shared responsibility. So, what did we do in the project? In the start, I think we had this vision of being approached by many staff and students with all of their great ideas on things that they wanted us to help them do, and different ways to communicate with each other. It didn't exactly happen like that. We had a much easier time reaching out to teachers, for example, them being a part of the infrastructure and existing channels of communication in which we had access to. It was much more difficult to reach out and work with students, as we saw. So we have just some focus questions here that are a bit of the key issues which guided our work. The first one being how to incorporate active student participation more into the core activities at the university. How can we get more spaces for staff and students to discuss teaching and learning together? And finally, how can we involve more students? So starting first with these core activities, we had a lot of targeted strategies, I guess you could say. We talked a lot in what we called consultations. We spoke a lot with both individual teachers and groups of teachers. So we were invited out to different departments over the whole university to talk about active student participation and to try to inspire people to start working in different ways in their specific contexts. We also saw a huge demand, typically from the humanities students for mentoring courses. This is something that Alexis, as I mentioned, was involved with before the project started. But this was just students running smaller study groups as a complement to their normal study courses. We also worked on different courses for teachers. At Uppsala University, in the Academic Development Unit, all new staff is required to take an academic teacher training course before they can start teaching. And so we, as a project, became part of that course to talk about active student participation. We're also part of a course now on activating teaching methods for students. And we've also been part of a revision process for the Uppsala Pedagogical program, which really tries to highlight the different roles that staff and students at Uppsala University play in teaching and learning, and really talking about and highlighting teaching and learning as a shared responsibility. Right, in these different strategies to try to get more interaction between staff and students. A lot of this was just sort of reaching out to anybody that we knew, and doing a lot of university-wide initiatives. What was one initiative that was mentioned in an earlier presentation were these active student participation days, which I think is a bit what we're trying to do here as well, get staff and students together to discuss different ways of working together. What we did was we invited many people, staff and students who are working in different ways around the university to shortly present what they're doing in the hopes of inspiring their colleague, but also exchanging different challenges and developing their work further. We also had students presenting for the first time at the biannual Pedagogical conference at the university. This is a conference that has just been for teachers in the past, but which we were able to invite some students to present their ideas in the same room as teachers, and actually get some idea exchange going on there. When that worked pretty well, but is something that we really would like to develop further. Involving more students, this was, I think, one of the things that we struggled most with as a project. A couple of different ways that we tried to involve more students was through a student competition. This was related to the active student participation days, and as well the pedagogical conference that I just mentioned, where students were presenting. But what we did was last spring, we just made an advertisement and we went around to all of the different campus areas at Uppsala and said, okay guys, what are your best ideas for improving your education? What best facilitates your learning? Can you think of a way to improve a particular moment in your course? Can you think of a way to engage your peers more in your learning? And we asked simply students to write one page about their best idea, and we got in 37 different applications, which was unexpected. We hoped there would be, we had no idea how many to expect, but we're pleasantly surprised, and the ideas were just fantastic. A lot of students we saw were really interested in different ways to engage their peers more in their learning, which I think as well is something that many teachers would like to know how to do as well. So that was, and the related to the pedagogical conference, then some of the people who entered the competition were then, everybody was invited to present at this pedagogical conference, and 5 students agreed to present their ideas for the competition. So they were the ones that presented. The last strategy that I want to mention for involving more students, this was, there's a pedagogical fund that we at our Department of Academic Development have, and we were able to give a bit of extra funding for a staff and student project together. And one of the person that got the funding this year was able to start a mentorship program in the language department. So she was able to take a short training, and as well then support students who wanted to be mentors and sort of facilitate this mentoring program in her department. So while we were pleased and really inspired by the students that we worked with and who were participating in the different initiatives, we kept stumbling on this reoccurring challenge. Throughout the project, we struggled with a language and an invitation that could engage more than just the already active students. So this aspect of how we invite students, I think, is captured really well in this quote by Dunn and Zanstra from University of Exeter and the Students as Change Agents program. They write, "There is a subtle but extremely important difference between an institution that listens to students and responds accordingly, and an institution that gives students the opportunity to explore areas that they believe to be significant, to recommend solutions, and to bring about the required changes." So how do we move more towards a university that's like this? And this is something that we have really been striving for in this project. This is an advertisement to work with active student participation. And it summarizes, I think, really what we've been feeling challenged by during our project. This advertisement was inspired by a newspaper advertisement that Shackleton supposedly wrote when he was looking for a crew to take out to Antarctica with him. He decided to go for the straightforward method in his seeking of a crew. He said in his advertisement, there will be bitter cold, long, cold nights, low wages, and the likelihood of success was very small. And he knew that with this advertisement, he would get the right men to go with him. So we wrote, "Staff and students wanted for unpredictable journey, no extra pay or resources, likely discomfort, long periods of complete confusion, constant existential crisis, safe passage possible, unlikely return to normal teaching, transformation and lifelong learning in case of success." So if we are thinking about invitations, I think this advertisement highlights a lot of these challenges. Why should we as students engage in something that is risky and uncomfortable? And so maybe, I guess, what you can take from this as a teacher is not to expect students to want to go to Antarctica immediately, but also to realize that if you give them time and support, that they as well will likely see the meaning in all of this and likely to understand that there will be better learning with this way of working and teaching and learning. We also have a lot of questions. But I wasn't sure that it's not good to show a lot of overwhelming questions, and we're better at asking questions than giving answers to them maybe, but please, if you have any questions.
Can I start with one?
Yeah.
I mean, I moderate. I guess I have control of the microphone, so I'll start anyway. What do you think is the reason behind it being so hard to engage students in this? Have you found, or like, what would you think would be the reasons?
The reason.
No, reasons.
Reasons. And Alexis, if you want to say something, you should feel free to jump in. Maybe you want to start.
Okay, so I guess for us, using the word active student participation is not the most clear way of trying to engage a student also. It's a metacognitive term. Using a word something like sustainability or entrepreneurial learning or international relations, that has a tendency of just engaging students easier. So just having students think about how they learn is not the first thing that a person would spend their time on. There's so many other things that just lure them out into the darkness. So that's something we talked about. How can we make this in a concrete way that would lend students a chance to understand what this is about, sort of. How do I learn best, and how can I spend my time at university at the best time possible? So, but I think part of it is the abstract nature of the concept. It takes time to understand it, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if I have so much of a question, more of an answer actually. So I'm the
Fantastic.
so I'm the chairman of the study board at my chapter. So I'm responsible for getting heaps of student representatives into heaps of different meetings and stuff. So what we've noticed, at least what I've noticed, is that it's important to make the students feel like they have a change, feel like they are important to the process. I think a lot of the representatives, we say, okay, you're responsible for this course now. You have responsibility. If you change this course, you can make it so much better for everyone in the future. You are important. And they feel, yeah. And then they get out, they go into their classroom, and then they get their friends like, come on, we can do a difference, yeah. And so it's about really encouraging that kind of activity. And we have special names for them. We call them course developers, because that makes them sound fancy. We sort of paint up a picture. What does a course developer do? And we had no idea. And then they sort of feel very important. Oh, I'm a course developer. I have to fix this course. It's my duty. And then they go on, and they do it a lot of the time. And I think that is something that's quite key, that's often underutilized. And some other ways to do this is to show at the beginning of the course, this is the feedback that we've gotten, and this is how we've changed the course accordingly, to be able to show that, we actually do listen to your feedback. And I think other ways of incorporating is fika, lunch. It's very, very good. And also, I mean, just calling upon students to go to meetings, that once again makes them feel important. I think a lot of this is, how do we engage students in designing courses before they're finished? How do we get them during the course? How do we get them to give us feedback? I mean, just ask us, you know. It's just contact. Usually every chapter, at least here, has someone who's overly responsible. And then you can just sort of say, hey, I need people. And they go, okay, I fix people. You know, and I mean, I think also at the end you can just have a lecture where you openly ask the class, what did you think about the course? What can we do different? And that's something I think is quite underutilized. And I think often we make it quite hard for ourselves when at the end of the day it's just book meetings and give us lunch and we'll arrive. Very important.
So
yes.
Food and yeah, I think those are all really good points. Having something, showing students how they can concretely contribute to something, and also showing them the result of that. I think that's really good points. At the same time, I think one of the challenges of doing that, and if you're really trying to create some kind of inclusive academic community, that not all students feel able to contribute to a space, like to these kinds of spaces. If you just leave a space open, there's only a few students who are going to want to enter that space. And I guess one thing that we would like to work more with is, there's a lot of really fantastic engaged students, and we want to keep them and have them as ambassadors and people to sort of spread good ideas and be supportive for other students. But how do we get these students who don't want to enter the space because they feel like they cannot for many different reasons? So that's just a reflection back on that. Yeah.
And I think so too. I've been responsible for the mentor programs at KTH for many years. And it's the same here. It's easier to get mentors, I mean, career professionals from working life than to get student having a mentor. And I think it belongs to the culture as well. If they just listen for 1 year or 2 years, in the third year you can just suddenly say, oh, you have to be active, you have to participate, we'll listen to you. So if we don't have the culture from the beginning, that you're involved all the time, as you said, how can we get the whole university to come to this point? I mean, you can't just suddenly start and kind of handing it over. So if they start day one, they don't feel they're a part of 1 year of math training, they're not going to be active in year 2 or anything like that.
Thank you.
I think another thing here is that we should tell the students that this is really part of their education of becoming lifelong learners. This is a training to become lifelong learner. And I think that's an important issue also.
I agree, absolutely.
Thanks. I actually have a question, not a comment. You said that during the... Now you don't... Oh, you have a mic. Yeah. Good. During the conference, you had a possibility to have a dialogue between the teachers and the students. Did you document what they came up with?
You mean the outcome of the conversation, or the actual...
Different suggestions to what to do.
Well, That's actually something we should follow up on now that I think of it. But one specific example that happened was there was a psychology student who had a really great idea about how to engage her peers more in the classroom. She was tired of sort of students that just sort of walked, like they became super good experts at studying and getting through the program, but they weren't really engaged in any other way. And she's like, I want to wake them up and make them engaged. There was a psychology teacher sitting in the room, and she's like, this is a great idea, let's work together. I think that would be a really good idea to follow up on that. But we've been, I guess, following so many different things, but I think that's a really good point that needs to be.
When you do, can you please tell us what you came up with?
Yes.
Thank you.
I maybe can do a little advertising for ourselves, but I think we had a website here at the beginning. But we are going to launch a new website in the next couple of weeks. This is the old one, but it will lead you to the new one when it's up. But there we've really tried to build a lot of resources. There's more of these films that talk about different challenges and different, we've interviewed a lot of different people at the university, for example. We've tried to come up with written material and presentation material for different uses as well. So if you're interested in sharing with your colleagues, please feel free to take our stuff and use it.